Hello, I'm John Pollock, and this is Fight News Now, the MMA edition. Hello, it's John Pollock, and what a show we have coming up for you today. You are going to be hearing from UFC champions Ronda Rousey, Jon Jones, and Dominick Cruz. Josh Hill from the current season of Tough is going to be joining us. Plus, it's Robin Black and myself going 3 rounds, looking ahead to a busy weekend. Priscilla Carapan is lacing up the skates on the shift, and we have all of this week's newsmakers, which are up right now. We are just over a week away from UFC 165, and for the second straight year, Toronto will receive 2 title fights on the card. Of course, we have the light heavyweight title main event, but we will also see Renan Barão defending his interim bantamweight gold against Eddie Wineland, and we'll take a deeper look at these 2 135-pound fighters.
And still, the interim UFC bantamweight champion, Renan Barão.
Obrigado a todos aqui presentes aqui. Obrigado por estar aqui.
Thank you all of you for coming to watch the fight. And Dominick Cruz, I'm waiting for you. Please come quick.
As the only interim champion to defend his title, the next obvious choice for Barão would have been Dominick Cruz, but making that match would be put on hold.
You know, I'm looking to be back beginning early next year in 14. And I can't give an exact date because the truth is I haven't been even cleared by the doctor.
So at UFC 161, Barão would take a bout with former WEC bantamweight champion Eddie Wineland. But weeks before the fight, the interim champion would pull out with a foot injury. The fight would be scratched from the card and moved to UFC 165 in Toronto as the co-main event. Barão has developed his game alongside featherweight champion Jose Aldo at the famed Nova União gym in Rio de Janeiro. The 26-year-old has used unorthodox striking,
spinning back kick to the body, flying knee,
as well as an aggressive submission game to score finishes in 20 of his 30 wins. The Brazilian also rides a 20-fight win streak into the second defense of his interim title. Eddie Wineland may not be riding a long win streak or have a huge name, but his history,
I was the first WEC belt holder,
and 2 signature wins secured the Indiana native a shot at the interim champion anyway. The 29-year-old has been in the sport for 10 years and has a clear goal for his future.
The ultimate goal would be to retire with the belt. To win the belt, you know, it'd be kind of like a homecoming.
At UFC 165, we'll see if Barão can continue his path of destruction on the way to a bout with Dominick Cruz, or if Wineland can upset the champ and claim interim gold for himself.
Renan Barão has not tasted defeat since his first professional fight back in 2005, and now 31 fights later, he looks to make the second defense of his interim title. And we now hear from the official bantamweight title holder, Dominick Cruz, on who he feels will be walking out of Toronto with the interim title belt.
I got to take Barão in this one. I think his striking defense, the fact that he throws tons of low kicks and he mixes his striking with knees, kicks, and hands, boxing, all that together, plus the fact that he's got grappling and a black belt he can win on the ground too. It's just too many options to win for Barão. I got to choose him in this fight, not to shut out Wineland. I mean, you can't sleep on a guy like Wineland with extreme power in his hands, great footwork which shuts down the grappling of Barão if he so chooses, because you can't get a hold of him, and he's knocking people out. He can knock out Barão. It's just, he's got to get through the defense of Barão, and I think that's what's going to make the difference in the fight.
UFC President Dana White was asked about the status of Cruz earlier this week, as Cruz has not fought since October of 2011, and the pressure to strip Cruz of the title continues to grow as Cruz has been unable to lock down a return date.
Well, I hope this is the last time that it'll be the interim title fight. We're expecting his return at the beginning of the year, and if he can't return at the beginning of the year, then we're going to have to make a decision.
UFC 165 will be headlined by Jon Jones as he will look to make the 6th defense of his light heavyweight title against Swedish star Alexander Gustafsson. Jones will walk into this fight with an 8-inch reach advantage as the champion's wingspan clocks in at an impressive 84.5 inches, and he tells us how that will factor into this fight.
He gets hit a lot with, a lot of different punches. With me, I've gone through some fights where fighters have only punched me once. I mean, I fought Rampage Jackson. He hit me like twice in the whole fight. Leo Machida was able to touch my face like twice in the whole fight. You know, fighting against the best guys in the world, and a lot of them never even get a chance to punch me in the face throughout the fight. So I just believe that I use my timing, my rhythm, my distance a lot better than his. I think the proof is in the pudding.
The situation involving George St-Pierre, Johnny Hendricks, and the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association has turned into a mess, with the outside testing likely out the window in preparation for their November 16th bout. St-Pierre and Hendricks had initially agreed to the testing, but after issues with VADA over who would be covering the costs and other obstacles, it appears off. This was fueled a week ago when TBA Sports reported that VADA was still awaiting paperwork from the camp of Johnny Hendricks. Meanwhile, a potential future UFC welterweight and still the current Bellator welterweight champion Ben Askren weighs in on this bout coming up on November the 16th between Johnny Hendricks and UFC welterweight kingpin George St-Pierre.
The notion that he's the best wrestler, it's insane to me. I mean, he's got a great double leg, he has good timing, but you know, just watching him, you see a lot of areas where he's not a natural wrestler, he just doesn't flow as well. I don't think there's a real clear-cut challenger after Hendricks. Maybe Hendricks will get hurt and I'll fight him right away, I don't know. There's no clear-cut challenger that George St-Pierre hasn't already beat at 170, so I don't really see a reason why I shouldn't just be able to jump in there and beat somebody up. Johnny Hendricks is staying on point and, you know, getting some wrestling in, which hopefully he's smart enough to do. You know, he'll definitely out-wrestle George St-Pierre.
Last week, the latest season of The Ultimate Fighter debuted on Fox Sports 1 with 762,000 viewers tuning in, with coaches Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate anchoring this season. Rousey has been very critical in the media over content she is worried will be airing during the season, specifically disagreements with her coaching staff, and recently spoke on how the show may paint the female champion.
They would purposely go out of their way to manipulate me to make me react as dramatically as possible, and which is probably one of the reasons why I walked away from the whole experience with a pretty sour taste in my mouth. Was they didn't really care about making it easy on us. They cared about making it entertaining on everybody else. But it was nice to know right off the bat what their priorities were, and it definitely wasn't us.
This week's tweet of the week comes from an alumni from the 7th season of The Ultimate Fighter, that being Matt Riddle, who after a 12-fight career, which all took place in the UFC, he has announced his retirement after cracking a rib and pulling him out of his September 20th bout for Bellator, and has announced that he will no longer be fighting. Hamilton's gentleman Josh Hill is one of the 8 members of Team Miesha Tate on the current season of The Ultimate Fighter. He joined me last week on the MMA Report to chat about the show, and also spoke about his thoughts on cutting down from bantamweight, where he has spent his entire career fighting at.
Some of the guys are telling me to walk around at 175, 165 even, and that's, you know, I walk around about 153. So I thought about it, and I actually talked to some of the coaches down there, some of the nutritionists and stuff, and they said, yeah, you can make 125 for sure. So that is an option. That talent pool in the UFC is really shallow. It's only like 15 guys or so, right? So, you know, if I could be that bigger guy at 125, and, you know, why not try it out?
And this Saturday night features not only the biggest pay-per-view of any combat sport for the calendar year, but could be the most purchased boxing event since 2007, as undefeated fighters Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Saul Canelo Alvarez will meet in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we now take a closer look at this landmark fight.
There's no city like New York City. You can put me in any ring and I will always come out victorious. Washington, D.C., make some noise!
This is my dream. I fun today. I like it so much, my fans.
Welcome, Grand Rapids' own Money Mayweather! You guys stood behind me and believed in me when no one else believed in me. All right, Chicago!
¿A quién le van? ¿A quién le van? Aquí está su gallo!
I'm just waking up. I'm tired. Guess what? We're in Mexico.
Me siento muy contento, muy orgulloso de ser mexicano, pero el 14 de septiembre todos se darán cuenta. Así es. Tuyo nada más.
San Antonio, Texas, I want to know if you're also ready. Tell me 10 world champions Canelo beat. I mean, when you get talking about 20 and 30, you're talking about me.
El 14 de septiembre, no nomás yo voy a ganar. Vamos a ganar todos juntos.
Every time they get a guy, they build him up, and you know what I do? Damn, life is good. See you September 14th.
And I'm joined this week by Robin Black. 3 rounds is going to be coming up, but we have Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Saul Canelo Alvarez on Saturday. Did they check the calendar ahead of time, knowing that they're going head-to-head with World Series of Fighting?
Well, we're going to find out, man. I mean, Arlovsky versus Mike Kyle, that really could steal the night.
Yeah, as much as the whole combat sports world's eyes are going to be on boxing Saturday night, there is a ton of MMA going on this weekend, including Bellator and World Series of Fighting. We're going to take a look at that, as well as these promotions and how they are faring in the landscape that is not earmarked UFC. All of that and more coming up on 3 rounds as we continue on Fight News Now. And welcome back to Fight News Now. I'm John Pollock, filling in for John Ramdeen, who's got a real tough assignment right now over in Spain all week. But Robin Black joins us as always to keep it consistent here on 3 rounds. And we look ahead to this weekend, Robin. And certainly, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of the focus is going to be on Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Saul Canelo Alvarez. But we have a ton of MMA cards going on. Let's start off with Friday night, though. Bellator returns with Bellator 99. It's the kickoff of their featherweight tournament. And also some former UFC fighters, one of which even challenged for the light heavyweight title way back in the day at UFC 33 and Vladimir Matyushenko. And that's where we can start things off now, this fight with Matyushenko and Houston Alexander. To some, they feel that this is not the matchmaking Bellator should be going towards, of using former UFC stars or at least names that are familiar. But the other part of it is that if I'm a fan that's maybe only watched UFC, maybe these two, I want to see what Houston Alexander is up to in 2013, and then I'll get to see these other featherweights that maybe I haven't heard of.
Yeah, I think you got both sides right there. I mean, realistically, do you want to see guys you know? Because if so, if you remember some Houston Alexander's early career in the UFC when he's just going in and knocking guys out in the first round, and if you remember Vladimir Matyushenko's cleaning up the garage being a janitor, that's obviously a gag on his nickname. He's actually a really solid fighter. But if you remember these guys, you know, you look at them and go, okay, this is a fight I know. And really, that's a problem Bellator has right now. That featherweight fight is a really, really good fight. This is a fight people recognize, and from there down, they really got to work to make these stars.
Yeah, and that's, you referenced Diego Nunes, who's making his Bellator debut. He takes on Patricio Pitbull Freite, who has looked tremendous in Bellator, him along with his brother Patricky, who did not have a great outing last weekend. But nonetheless, this featherweight tournament, this is kind of indicative of a lot of the weight classes within Bellator, where you might have 1 or 2 that are very interesting, but it is a big drop-off after that part, and you are trying to sell world-class level athletes here. But the fact is, you know, last weekend, I'm sorry, but watching Jeremy Kimball, this isn't world-class with some of these tournaments. I've always advocated, I think 4-man tournaments make a lot more sense, and it's easier for the viewer at home to keep track of all these tournaments with less bodies in there.
Yeah, this is a business problem. I mean, what level of fighters are these guys at? Well, Pitbull and Nunes, that's a really good fight. Pitbull's a finisher, and Nunes hasn't finished anyone in 5 years, but he controls fights. It's going to be a tough one for Pitbull to actually finish, I think. It's an exciting fight, but yeah, after that, it kind of drops down. I mean, when the UFC expanded and took on that Fox deal, and they were doing FX and Fuel and doing all this stuff, they had to find so many guys. They have the 2 best matchmakers on the planet, and I think everybody agrees with that. And even those 2 guys had a tough time in that first year finding the right people, you know, getting more fighters, knowing who to put in what spots. Then you got what's left, and Bellator, they have solid people there, but I mean, they're fighting for scraps, and they, you know, they haven't had the resources to be able to grow like that. So this is a tough one, man. To convince the average person that, you know, like you mentioned, the Kimball fight, or you know, any of these lower level fights, to convince somebody that you're watching top level stuff when they can turn the channel and see an elite, you know, main card UFC fight, it's a tough sell.
That battle for number 2 also includes the World Series of Fighting, who return on Saturday night, no less. Maybe the worst night of the entire year to be presenting any form of combat sport, going against what will be the biggest pay-per-view of the year. But let's compare models here. Bellator is going the weekly route that they have been for all of their seasons at this point, whereas World Series of Fighting, they're planning to do another show in October and then cap off the year in December, where personally for me, when World Series of Fighting comes around, you at least have that time to look at the fights. This is not a stellar card on Saturday, but nonetheless, you do have that anticipation, whereas Bellator, it's just boom, boom, boom every single week, and I think it's tougher to make a lot of these fights meaningful when you just are throwing so many cards at it. Do you have a preference over one model versus the other?
You know, it's tricky because the World Series of Fighting, you're right, you can make it an event. We are going to see these guys. This is a deal. You know, we're going to see Arlovsky versus Kyle. That's a really great fight. People don't know Mike Kyle that well, but Mike Kyle, after you got Cormier and Cain Velasquez, Mike Kyle is the next big man in that gym. So he trains with top guys. Everyone knows Arlovsky. If you didn't have the biggest boxing card of the year on the weekend, you could make that a bit of an event for MMA fans. On the other hand, Bellator, that weekly model, that's modern thinking, is to create content every week so that people can consume your stuff. You can hook fans and keep them there. That's the theory, but having to make so much content, it really waters it down. So fighting for number 2, man, is going to be a tough one. Bellator is the number 2 promotion because they got Viacom and they got tons and tons of money. World Series of Fighting, they're going to try some acquisition and buy some other organizations. That's their business model right now. But, you know, really, the UFC is Coke. Trying to fit a Pepsi in 2013 is going to be real tough.
There's going to be a 4-man mini tournament that starts on this World Series of Fighting show. We have Dave Branch. He will be taking on Danilo Villafort. And then as well, Elvis Mutapcic, who you'll be familiar with from the MFC promotion here in Canada, takes on Jesse Taylor. Quickly, though, in the main event, Andrei Arlovsky, Mike Kyle. 2 heavyweights that are still trying to remain relevant here. I think an important win for both. And for Mike Kyle, kind of unrealized potential, I think, throughout his career.
Yeah, this is a real fight. This is a legit heavyweight fight. But, you know, where's Arlovsky at? He's gone to Greg Jackson's camp. He's improved some things. But I think, for my money, man, this is Mike Kyle's fight to lose. He's got the best guys, the best big men in the gym he's working with every week, and he is an underrated heavyweight.
Those are 2 of many MMA cards coming up this weekend. But coming up next on Fight News Now, we still have The Shift with Priscilla Carapan and our weekly viral video. Welcome back to Fight News Now. It's John Pollock back with you, and we have a ton of live cards coming up this weekend, starting with K1 Max Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern from Spain. That will be followed by Bama 13 from Birmingham, England at 8 o'clock, and then Cage Wars 59 is coming at you at 10 p.m. Eastern. But right now, we are diving into The Shift with Priscilla Carapan.
Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned scrap on the ice? Well, in EA NHL 14, you can scrap all you want. We spoke to the producer of the title who gives us the lowdown on NHL 14 and tells us about the redesigned fight engine.
NHL 14 this year, it's all about big hits, real fights, and unbelievable speed and skill, and really looking at that perfect balance between the speed, skill, and aggression of the sport, and getting all those things in that right amount of balance so that we can tell that story of the skilled guy versus the tough guy. We have NHL 94 Anniversary Mode. NHL 94, for those that played it, such an iconic game in the history of this franchise. From the time you go into the mode, you're going to hear the organ music, you're going to see the blue ice, you're going to see the player indicator, and the best part of it is we have the simple button control, so anybody can pick it up and play it. Brand new Enforcer engine in the game this year, completely overhauled, built from the ground up, and what we've done is we've taken the technology from Fight Night, brought that over to NHL, made it hockey, so great base for us to start from. Lots of great punching, lots of blocking, lots of strategy, lots of depth with it. And then for us this year, it's all about in the moment and telling that story why fighting is an important part of hockey. What we do have this year is real-time damage. So after a fight happens, you'll see your player skating with penalty blocks with a little bit of damage, a little bit of bruising on his face, a little bit of bruising on the nose, some scars and things like that. So real-time damage is a big feature that we've taken from Fight Night and brought over to NHL this year. The biggest reason why we put the Enforcer engine this year was that our fans have asked for a change. The fighting we've had in the past versions of the game has become stale. As a first-person view, it felt like a one-off mini-game. You can throw overhands, you can throw uppercuts, you can dodge, you can block, you can counter. If you make the guy miss with his punch, you can actually pull him because he's off balance. So we spent a lot of time working with some of the enforcers in the NHL. So we wanted for this year to be more part of the experience, more in the moment, more fluid, more organic, and just really capture what's like for a fight to happen in real hockey.
It's been nearly 5 years, but the wait is over. Grand Theft Auto 5 is set to be released on September 17th, and there's all the violence, mischief, and carnage you can hope for. The game is once again set in San Andreas, a fictional state based on a modern-day Southern California. Here's a quick look at what you're in store for.
A
few weeks ago, I was happily sulking by my swimming pool. What do you want?
Just came by to see if there's something I can help you with.
I'm retired.
GTA 5 is by far the franchise's most complex release to date. For the first time ever, the story follows not one, but 3 characters with converging stories.
So what we doing here?
We're working, amigo.
Michael, a former successful bank robber, can't say the same thing about being a father.
What did you just say to me?
Stop it! You're ruining my yoga!
Trevor, Michael's right-hand man, who lives in a trailer, indulges himself with copious amounts of drugs, fueling his aggressive and violent behavior. Oh, and did we mention he was crazy?
I'm on a nice new tits.
That shit crazy.
Do you want me to get my dick out again?
Franklin is just your run-of-the-mill repo man. He tries to live a good and honest life, but trouble finds him.
Can't repo the assets of a dead man.
As the 3 protagonists' lives intertwine, the player can change vantage points to perform missions.
Get us out of here! Roger that!
The setting for GTA 5 is massive. From high-class stores to urban decay, from big city living to untouched wilderness, GTA 5 fully encapsulates Southern California. And last but not least, Rockstar Games has created Grand Theft Auto Online, which will be regularly updated starting October the 1st to further expand the playing experience. So whether you're looking for some simple hand-to-hand combat or a full-blown deathmatch, you and up to 16 friends can occupy the streets, skies, and waters of San Andreas at the same time.
You are alone, you pathetic psychopath!
Suppose a group hug's out of the question.
That's it for the shift this week. I'm tapping out. Back over to you, John.
Thank you, Priscilla, and we're almost out of time as we have everything checked off the list except for this, our weekly viral video. Lovely submission. And that is going to bring Fight News Now to a close. I want to thank our guests, Jon Jones, Ronda Rousey, Dominick Cruz, Ben Askren, Josh Hill, and all of you for tuning in. This week on the MMA Report, I'm chatting with Boss Rutan. Check that out Thursday in the podcast section of FightNetwork.com. And on behalf of Robin Black, Priscilla Carapan, and the whole Fight Network crew, I'm John Pollock, and enjoy all of our weekend cards coming up on Fight Network.